it's all over the city that is happening. So after the 20 What? Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Bill. Thank you, thank you. I'm Dawn Sanford, Vice Chair for Housing, and I'm hoping to call the meeting to order at 6:38 p.m. under the guidance of Marlene here. And are we ready to take a roll, or do we need to read the rules first?
You have to read the rules first, give me 1
Okay.
second, please. The printout. That's for the budget. If you want an agenda, it's over there. Just give me 1 second. Just give me a second, okay? All right, Dawn.
All right, so, thank you again, Marlene, Peter, and everyone who came today to the meeting. We are going to just read the ground rules for everybody who is here and on the line. No one may speak until granted the floor, and for CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. If you have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Finally, keep your questions and comments brief and on topics to the discussion. For members of the public, thanks for joining us. If you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. So now we are going to call to order at
It's
6.
okay.
Okay.
You did it already.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So we'll have the roll call.
Devin Cronshaw.
Present.
Angela Donadell is excused for this meeting. John Green is excused for this meeting. Annie Hanson. Joanne Lawson.
She called in sick.
Beverly McFarland.
Present.
Beverly Pablo.
Present.
Claudia Perez.
Present.
Cynthia Ramos. Nicholas Reyes. Dawn Sanders.
Present.
Candy Vivez Vasquez. And
She's also-
Jason Wu.
Here.
You have a quorum, Don.
Thank you. So if we have, quorum, thank you so much, Marlene. We would like to adopt the agenda. If there's nobody against adopting the agenda, which I see everybody has now, could you, if you don't say anything, that means we're gonna adopt the agenda. Thank you so much. So we're gonna thereby adopt the agenda and the minutes. Do we have minutes to adopt, Marlene?
The template is on the website.
Okay, so the agenda is on the website for everyone to see. If there are no disapprovals, we're gonna go ahead and adopt both the agenda and the meeting minutes from last month. Alrighty, that being done, is there any announcements that would fall under 3 minutes? Ms. Pavone?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. I just want the, members to be aware that the City of Yes Housing Opportunities, paperwork is out with, Department of Planning. It's a lot of videos that they had already put out, like in September and October. One of it's like 4 hours, so it's like the whole weekend to look over it. Hearing people, opinions about liking it and those opposed to it. It's a lot of good information, so I want us to get a jump before we as a committee have to make decisions on the City of Yes, because it's gonna go to every board, community boards, and going through the City of Yes for the economics was kind of grueling, so I just want us to be on point, on topic and informational to make the decisions and discuss it until we get it in our last, in order to make our recommendations and stuff like that.
Thank you so much. Have we had the yes presentation yet?
For the economic development piece, a resolution went out and the full board voted on that last month, and
Okay,
it's up on the website.
we didn't do we didn't hear the presentation, right? I think,
Echo Dev covered it for like 2-3 months.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Someone said they were also gonna come here and talk to us about it, so,
I mean, you can email me if you want me to work on that for next month or the next 3 months.
yeah,
That's
I know we already voted on it, but
Yeah,
it would be good to better understand it. So I'll just put that in the email.
In regards to, Chair,
Go ahead.
in regards to this, housing opportunities, they haven't gone to the community boards yet. They're still doing drafts and doing analysis, environmental analysis, which they passed or, went through already where they hear people's opinions and try to put it in the final, evaluation, environmental assessments. But it's a lot that we need to cover. So we haven't been presented by that yet.
Okay, okay.
I'm done.
Yep.
So one of your presenters from Legal Aid, Joshua, that's going to speak about the right to shelter and the impact on the migrants. He's here until 6:45. It's now 6:45.
Josh,
So, I have no idea if he's still on. He did
Hi, I'm
say-
sorry, all. I am here. I am, would you like to reschedule? Is there another meeting I can come to?
Sure. Do you have anything to leave with us, like a flyer or email or anything?
Or you could just have
Um,
present and move your agenda around. It's up to you. This is
Can
the
he
second
present
time
now?
he's come.
Can you present?
He's here
now?
to present.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
then you
I-
said-
I really can't. I'm sorry. I only had until 6:45. So, I will send you some materials and then you can tell me if you want me to come to the next meeting.
We definitely want you to come, but,
Okay.
yeah, we
All right.
party gets started a little later sometimes, so.
Understood. Yeah, I'm sorry. Today I only had until now, so, but, I will see you next time.
Please,
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
okay, we missed out, but next time, are we ready for the presentation from HPD? Mr. Ennis?
Do you have any informational updates? It's up to you to follow.
Oh, right. Are there any informational updates? I did talk to Xavier briefly about the hybrid versus in person for the committees, and we're not quite there yet. I thought by April we would have a decision. I tend to think that the committee meetings, would be just fine on Zoom and the full board in person. And, but I don't believe we have any further information about that, so for now, we are just continuing completely in person. Marlene, did I forget anything? I had asked, someone had asked me that before.
No.
Okay, okay, so that's the only informational update I have. Oh, second informational update is gossip. Can I bring it now or bring it at new business?
It's up to you. I'm not sure what you want to say.
So, I'll just bring it up so people can look at their phones and then maybe we'll talk about it under new business, although it's old business, the article that came out, and I think our chair is on and he's gonna talk a little bit about it. The article that came out that says 100 of our 335 nitrogen developments, experienced construction fraud, whereby what people have been telling us for years, that someone came to fix their apartment but never came to fix their apartment, or someone half fixed their apartment, or the repair wasn't adequate, or they did something and said it was done and nobody said anything about it. So, that's formally an issue that's being, brought up as fraud, and people walked away in handcuffs today, or they didn't walk away, they were in handcuffs, and, that's a very, very big deal. And when I worked on, Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, we had a very tight hold on our contractors, but we saw that residents will come to us and ask us to fix things in their homes that had already been paid to be fixed. And so I know we have a lot of people here who can speak very passionately about this, but this is a huge blow, I think, to the credibility of NYCHA. And, but on the other hand, it illuminates something that residents have been saying forever. They're paying for their own, some people are paying for their own repairs and someone else got paid, and a lot of under the table deals, and that's very, very distressing. It really aggravating. So I just want to put that as an informational update in case we run out of time, we don't put it on new business or you don't get to it.
But can I,
Sure, please.
especially, I think we should, respect that you're not guilty into, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
respectfully, we don't want to jump the gun without knowing facts. Because I can truly tell you, sometimes it's smoke and mirrors.
okay, I'm glad to hear that.
It was all over the news.
I'm glad to hear
That
that.
has nothing, news is
I wait
fake news.
until we bring it back up, because then.
Yeah, so only thing I'm talking about is,
No,
Yeah.
is
Oh,
that I'm passionate about that. It's a lot of times that, we convict people before that even comes, so,
okay.
that's it. I'm leaving.
No, I'm only talking from my own experience with working with construction firms and residents who, whose repairs were not handled, but the people who were supposed to repair them were paid. So I don't know any of these cases individually. In all my cases, all of my, my 33, it was about 33, NYCHA developments were coastal. So I don't, Washington was part of that though, Sandy recovery,
No, we weren't affected at all.
by Sandy recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, well, we got a few million, but we can talk about that later. For resilience.
And this is why we're in the situation that we're in now, even with the money
Yeah,
situation, and how many other funding sources has that the authority, the housing NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority received, and we still don't know where it is. They cannot account for it. So I think, it's gonna be a whole lot more to the story that comes out.
I think some contractors were paid for work they didn't do,
They were.
but I don't know
And
who did it.
absolutely, because
Yeah.
I've experienced it,
Yeah.
I've seen it. When this all settles, we need to look at the developments that were affected in East Harlem.
Mhm.
There's so much I wanna say about this.
That should definitely be.
Well, I will just say this, right? The residents again are impacted by this.
Correct.
Because now,
The
with
one
all
that
of these
suffer.
indictments, look at the workload it has to be replaced, and I'm just gonna put this out there. NYCHA last week sent for us, and this came from, one of the departments of intergovernmental. They, during the pandemic, a lot of people it was a lot of open slots, a lot of jobs.
Okay.
So what they did was they promoted people who applied for it on the contingency that they will pass the civil exam.
Mhm.
A lot of them have not passed that civil
Oh,
exam,
no.
so they will be pushed back.
Oh, no, I
Um,
don't like that.
so it's a lot.
Yeah.
Cause those people now who are in positions where, have to be put back, so there's positions that need to be filled. And then now we have this big whatever it is.
70.
We have to, and these, you gotta understand, supers and superintendents control the operation of the
But
development.
they don't.
Without them,
Right,
nothing gets done, really.
yeah.
Cause the property manager oversees everything, but it is the super and the assistant super. So these positions are critical
Mhm.
to the residents.
Well, I
The
thank
repair
you for that.
aspect.
Mark Levine's office sent us the original email. So I know we're gonna speak more about that. I just wanted to bring it up because it is a huge, huge issue. And so before we get into the meat of our agenda, I think we will have to come back to this at the end if we have time. But I just, again, I'm not saying anyone's guilty. I just know some people were paid for bad work or work that was not done, and that to me is very distressing. Full disclosure, I do MWBE, stuff for the state minority and women-owned business enterprises, and it's very distressing to see non-MWBEs do work, get paid for bad work, and then WBEs and minority businesses passed over for, accurate estimates and good work. And so I think who is that, would it be, Attorney General was also looking into MWBE fraud, all of that starts to be connected. Construction companies, but I don't wanna jump in that hole, but again, if I made it to seem that someone was guilty, I.
No. I said, no,
Okay.
I said respectfully.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
should,
yeah,
we're not.
right.
We
and I'm
wanna
not-
say that, we wanna put out there
That's
that
true.
a housing committee is not, we're not saying anyone is guilty.
I totally appreciate that. I hope they did their work. So,
Right.
with that said, and thank you both for your comments, Mr. Ennis, I don't think I think we'll just keep moving. If Mr. William Ennis is ready from HPD?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm joined by my colleague Trisha Dietz, who will also help me present the slide deck that I have. If you wouldn't mind identifying her as a presenter or panelist, that would be helpful. I also have a short presentation that I was planning on presenting. Excellent, thank you. I'll share my screen. All right, excellent. Trisha, are you there as well?
I am. I will try to figure out how to turn my video on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, community board members, for having us this evening. My name is Will Innes. I'm the Chief of Staff for Development at HPD. I'm joined by my colleague Trisha Dietz, who's the Assistant Commissioner for Housing Incentives at HPD. And we're excited to present to you about a new pilot that HPD is running in conjunction with DSS. So this is called the Unlocking Doors Pilot. The goal of the program is to encourage the rehabilitation of rent stabilized housing units that are currently vacant. It is also to provide housing for those most in need. The pilot initially will have funding for up to $25,000 per unit for up to 400 units. And so the pilot is currently open, accepting applications, and we would encourage everyone that feels that they might be eligible to apply. So unit eligibility requirements, as I mentioned, the unit must be vacant. So as per state law, all rent regulated units must be registered with HCR. The units that we're targeting in particular must have been registered as vacant for 2022 and 2023. Per building for rent regulated building owners that are interested in the program, we're requiring that there will be no more than 3 applied for units per building. Additionally, we're targeting affordable rent regulated apartments in particular, since we believe that this would be most appropriate for the population that we're attempting to serve. As you can see, the max legal rents are on the right. Additionally, in the pilot, units are being considered on a first come, first served basis. I'll turn it over to Tricia now to go through some of the process that her department is going to go through with prospective owners. But before I do, I'd love to pause for any questions that might have arisen thus far.
Well, this is Dawn. Can you just tell us, because I think I remember reading about this, how many vacant rent subsidized apartments are in the city, and if you know it in our district? Because I heard the number is high. People are kind of sitting on those apartments. Do you have
Sure.
a
Yeah, it's actually a very difficult policy question to answer, because a lot of times the definition of vacant is difficult, especially to quantify, especially at these affordable levels. This pilot is partially going to help us gauge whether or not these units truly are as plentiful as people have said they are. Additionally, I think that it's important to note the legal rent threshold that we're also talking about. So I think this pilot will partially inform our understanding about the number of vacant rent stabilized affordable apartments. So for your district in particular, it's difficult to estimate. But I honestly, I'd be happy to get back to you with an attempted estimate from our policy department. That said, we don't expect that there are many of those apartments here. That said, we're looking for any and all applications of potentially eligible buildings.
Thanks for answering that.
Sure.
Hey, well, question is Devin, thanks so far for the presentation. If you go back to the last slide, I thought I read maximum 3 qualified units per building. Can you just explain what that means?
Sure, yeah. So we were here in designing this requirement. We wanted to prevent owners from applying to the program for the entirety of a large building. So we didn't want to spend the entirety of the pilot on one building. So we set a max threshold for 3 units per building or fewer, so that we can make sure that the pilot was broadly distributed throughout the city depending on demand. So that would mean that in an individual building of an owner that's applying, no more than 3 units in a specific building could qualify for the pilot.
Understood, thank you.
Thanks. So let me just ask you before we keep going with questions, do you have more slides, or was Tricia gonna, I think whoever you have with you.
Yes, Trisha's gonna talk through the process a little more for prospective owners, and what that would look like for them.
So can we'll put our questions out there, but not our comments yet, and then you'll hit all those questions as you keep going. So Ms. Pavone, you were first, and then Ms. Beverly.
Happy to, yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you for the presentation. My question is, why are you just doing this for rent stabilized apartments? Are there any other city programs or buildings that have these type of vacancies that need the help? And why is it, just rent stabilized apartments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So HPD's Office of Development has a broad suite of preservation finance programs for entire buildings. This pilot in particular was targeting rent regulated affordable apartments. And as you'll see in the lease-up process that Tricia will cover a little later, the second purpose of the pilot is to move individuals that were formerly homeless that have city FEPS vouchers into these affordable rent regulated units. So I'd be happy to follow up with the community board about the various preservation finance programs that the Office of Development runs. But generally for this pilot in particular, we're targeting those vacant, affordable rent regulated units so that we can move people that were formerly homeless into a rent regulated, affordable and refurbished apartment. So that was kind of the second part of the purpose of the pilot. So I'd be happy to share more resources on our financing programs for buildings, but that was the original intent.
Thank you.
Ms. McFarland, you have,
And
another question?
my question was just based on the, what is the AMI with these, rents that you have provided for us?
Sure,
that-
yes. That's a good question as well. So the units themselves are an AMI restricted. City FEPS voucher recipients have certain criteria that they have to meet to receive a voucher, which is to be formerly homeless and to be generally low income. So the units themselves aren't AMI restricted, but they're rent regulated. So it's a slightly different schema.
And also, what is the length of time? Because I know some vouchers, it's 5 years. And some vouchers have a time limit.
Sure, that's a very clairvoyant question. One of the requirements for move-in, as you can see in the lease up portion of this, is that once the owner receives the bonus, they must offer a city FEPS voucher recipient a 2-year lease. And in addition to that, as according to the rent regulation laws, they must re-offer that at the end of the lease as well.
But they don't have to, take the, they don't have to re-rent it to them underneath those vouchers.
Yeah, so the 2-year lease will be executed, and then as a part of the rent regulation requirement, they will be required to re-offer a similar lease to the city FEPS voucher recipient.
But again, they don't have to honor that offer.
Yes, they do. Legally, they're required to honor that.
For how long? That's my question.
Yeah, so according to rent regulation, they must re-offer that lease for the duration of the individual's stay in that apartment. So as long as the city FEPS voucher recipient wants to stay there, the owner will be required to offer them a lease under the regulated max rent.
So, Will, thank you so much for giving that extra info. We would look forward to finding out how many of our units will be affected by this program, and obviously our board is also concerned that people do not take advantage or people do not lose out, or that this program helps who it's supposed to help. But if it's okay, we'll keep moving with the second part of the presentation.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with our policy team for an attempted estimate at the number of vacant affordable rent regulated units in your district. As I mentioned, it'll be very tough to get to because vacancy statistics are difficult to estimate, but I'd be happy to follow up with our policy team and get back to you. Tricia, do you want to go through with the process?
Sure. So I think what we have here is just a description of the process to apply. And again, I think we're really happy to answer questions from owners that are interested in applying. This is a unique program because there is an ability to provide work for a unit and get a voucher and bring that unit back online. So in order to apply, there is an online form on the HPD website, and the owner must provide 2 years of the DHCR rent registration, as Will mentioned, 2022 and 2023. And then there's also a supplemental form that has the proposed general scope of work that will be done in the unit, as well as project cost estimates. Then after work, that initial application has been received and reviewed by HPD. They will provide a letter that says that they are eligible for this program, and the owner can continue to do the scope of work that they have estimated. And within 6 months after they have finished that work, they will submit the receipts of the associated work to HPD, who will review the receipts. And then there will be an HPD inspection of the unit. And the inspection will be to ensure that the unit meets the city FEPS standards. And then HPD will work with DHS, and DHS will coordinate to identify a qualifying household for the owner to execute a 2-year lease, as well described. And then after the tenant is confirmed and moves into the unit, the owner will receive up to $25,000 for that unit, in addition to the payment from the city FEPS voucher for the registered rent.
So is the thought that this will be? Oh, well, you weren't done. Go ahead.
It's okay. I think the last page is just links to the HPD website and contact information, and the steps on the website, for just some general information.
So we have a few more questions, from our board. Are you available to keep going, or this was your last slide, right?
This was our last slide.
Yeah, this
We'd
is
be
my last
happy to-
slide.
Yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
So I have, Ms. Pavon and then Ms. McFarland and Jason Wu.
Okay, in regards to vendors, how is that, who choose the vendors? Do HPD do our request for a proposal for this work? And my second part of that is that you're giving that $25,000 bonus. Is this bonus going towards the repair, or this is just extra money to the owner for saying, hey, you're fixing up an apartment that you're supposed to be fixing up anyway?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the way that this program has been targeted, it's to target units that have been vacant for 2 years, and have been off market. So the goal is really to provide the up to $25 that would have to go toward a scope of work that the owner has provided receipts for, to bring that unit back online, really to have that unit that wasn't able to be rented out for one reason or another back and to be rented again.
And to directly answer your question, there's not going to be a list of RFQ for specific vendors. Owners can select or do the repairs themselves. And in addition to that, they'll have to provide the proof of the scope of work as well as the direct receipts. So the 25,000 up to will be directly related to the repairs that are done. We have a list of eligible repairs for the program that's on our website. And so the reimbursement of the bonus is specifically for the repairs themselves, just to be specific.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
to add to that, there is an eligible cost schedule. So we're not going to pay above specific eligible costs for each individual item of work being done.
So let's, so we're gonna keep going, and we have more questions. Ms. McFarland?
Yes, so, was this an, incentives being done because I know here in East Harlem, we have a lot of, the property managers that doesn't take city FEPS. We have a big problem here in East Harlem that we have a lot of our, homeless, people that's in shelters that are holding on to these city FEPS vouchers because the landlords are saying that y'all do not pay them on time or you don't pay. So, was this an incentive to, when you say 25,000 for repairs, is that really 25,000 for repairs, or to just get these, these landlords and owners to open up their homes to these, programs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the program has multifaceted incentives. So one of the incentives is for owners to rent to City FEP's voucher recipients, which we think hopefully will be a benefit of the pilot itself, so that there's more of an incentive, not only for owners to repair vacant, affordable rent regulated units, but also for them to lease to a City FEP's voucher recipient.
So what are you doing on the end
But
of them
again,
getting paid? That's where the biggest problem is, that city, all of our landlords are complaining about, they don't take them because they're not getting paid by HPD on time.
Yeah, so just for a little clarity, HPD is administering this program in conjunction with DSS. And DSS administers the city FEP's voucher. So in this lease up phase, that would be where the city FEP's voucher payments are made to the individual owners. I can't speak specifically for DSS's city FEP's payments methods, but generally we hope this is an incentive for more owners to lease to city FEP's voucher recipients.
And I just want to say the fact that they've been sitting vacant for 2 years should be also an incentive for them to go ahead and stop sitting on those units. Jason, will you have a question?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, what's the goal in terms of processing times for these applications? Because these are units that are 2 years plus vacant, so that's one question. And how do you reconcile processing times with the fact that there are staffing shortages across many of the different city agencies, including HPD, Department of Buildings, and so forth? So yes, HRA, all of the agencies. So how are we going to ensure efficient processing times given the staffing shortages?
That's a really good question. I'd be happy to start. This is Trisha's department specifically, so I'll pass it off to her. But overall, I think that's a valid concern. Generally, I think that the timeline is really dependent on the owner's investment in the process. So if the owner is able to make the repairs in a timely manner, they're responsive to HPD and to DHS in the lease up process, I think it'll be a lot faster than if the owner is taking significant times, is not responsive. So I'd be kind of remiss to give an individual timeline on that, just because it's so contingent on the owner's participation. But Trisha, I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
yeah, I was gonna start with that also. I think that we have done a number of things to the application itself in order to streamline the information and make it fairly straightforward for us to be able to review. And we have done so with both our piece and also in trying to streamline this work to be consistent with the work that DHS is already doing.
So I'll just say, the idea of this program sounds good, right? Getting vacant units back online to fill the affordable housing gap. That in theory sounds good, but we want to make sure these programs are actually doing what it's saying it's doing. It's not just window dressing that the government just says, oh, we have all these programs, but that are not actually effective in doing what we needed to do. So the second question I have is regarding, is there preference or priority or targeted outreach for small landlords? Because there's plenty of large landlords that have hundreds and hundreds of units, they make millions of dollars, they own giant real estate portfolios. Do they get the same access and benefit and consideration for this program? Or do small landlords get additional preference, and will there be targeted outreach to make sure the small landlords, the mom and pops, actually know about this program and can actually access it?
Sure, I think that's
I
another
think
really
that's
good
a-
question. Trisha, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a really good question and point. I think that's one of the reasons we're here to talk with you today. I think that we recognize that the success of the program is really the ability for us to really get in front and make the program well known and available. So I think we have tried to use our resources that we have, but also would appreciate your help in getting the word out to folks that maybe we're not aware of. I also just wanted to state in terms of the success of the program, I think it's a really good point. I think that we agree that it's a little bit of a unique program for its kind of targeted approach. And that said, it's a pilot, so we'll see how it goes. There was a limited funding available for 400 units. And we hope to be able to do to take a look at how successful it is.
Yeah, and
Okay.
to the latter part of the question as well, regarding the small landlord demand versus the large landlords. I think that was part of the reason that we made sure that there was a 3-unit max per building, so that large landlords couldn't take advantage of the program to apply for 100 units in one building to really take up a quarter of the entire pilot. So we wanted to make sure that this really was targeted in a way so that smaller landlords could have relative access in addition to any type of large landlord.
Thank you. We have 2 last questions, and we're gonna move on from there, Mr. Ron and Ms. McFarland, and then we will we'll thank you at that point.
Yes, my next question is, these are for homeless people that's already, or people that have the vouchers. Do you have a ready list of these, applicants that have vouchers, that as soon as the properties are finished, that the process of them moving into it or, leasing up is there already? I mean, is that already established? Like the first 400 units, do you have the first 400 Phelps applicants already?
Be happy to take this, Tricia. Please feel free to add in. DSS has a specific lease up process for the City FEPS program, which allows City FEPS recipients to view the apartment and select which apartment they feel is most appropriate for themselves. So there isn't a ready-made list of City FEPS voucher recipients that would be ready to take this. This is really trying to be cognizant of individual preferences. We don't want someone to be on the list that has a voucher that says, oh, you're at the top of the list, this is your apartment, you have to take it. We want people to have choice in addition to having their voucher. So in particular, DSS has a pretty robust lease-up process for the City FEPS vouchers, but that's why we don't have a specific list of individual voucher holders for individual apartments.
Thank you.
And last question, Ms. McFarland?
Yes, I want to piggyback on oversight. Do y'all have an oversight, something in place, a committee in place, which will, once they do this $25,000 worth of repairs in that particular unit, is there some oversight committee or inspection that will be done so to make sure these are quality material that's going into these units instead of some prefabricated things that will last only a year? And we have now tenants complaining about, their homes again. Substandard, right.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
really good
it's a really good
question.
point.
Tricia, go ahead.
Yeah, it's sure. I covered this fairly quickly, but there is a process where the scope of work, the owner will need to submit the receipts for the work done, and that work will be checked against a predetermined list of eligible costs, and those eligible costs will be confirmed. So an owner will not be able to receive an amount of work above what is eligible in the eligible costs. And then there is an HPD inspection of the unit to pass the City FEP standards before we have anyone move in.
So there's
And then
no
just to add on to that as well, I think that part of that lease up process that the DSS goes through is to allow for individuals with the vouchers to really examine the unit and make sure that what they're getting in their unit is up to their standard. So the twofold is not only just checking the receipts and making sure we're not reimbursing things that weren't repaired or reimbursing things that were of a lower quality, but it's also to make sure that the client that will be living there is satisfied with the repairs.
But we all know if I've been homeless for 10 years, I'll take anything.
So thank you again. You might be able to tell, we've had we've not had great luck with pilots in this community. But a pilot is sometimes another word for, we're gonna do this and you're gonna either benefit or not, and it doesn't matter to us. But I just have to say, I'm glad HPD is making this move, because once you find the numbers out, there are an astounding number of rent stabilized apartments that are sitting vacant. Owners are putting like $1,000 or less and then taking them off the rolls. And so we know that that's the direction a lot of people move in. So I'm glad you're putting together a deterrent, and I really, really hope this works the way it's supposed to. So again, I want to thank you so much for your time and being so transparent with us and just being honest about what you don't know, what you do know. And I truly do hope this works out the way you intend it to work out, and not how we've experienced this before. So thank you again. If you could send this slideshow, would be great, if it's ready, if it's ready to go to the public. Partially because I can't see, but also because we do want to go back over, we might have a few more questions. So Claudia has had some good questions, and so I just want to take a closer look before we ask any more questions.
Sure, I'd be happy to send the version of the presentation that we presented tonight. I'll also follow up with our policy team to see if at all possible, we can get a type of estimation for the number of affordable vacant rent regulated apartments in your district.
We hope you will choose our district
Yeah.
for this program, and then we can partner, we can partner with you. So again, thank you so much, and have a good night. We hope you'll come back.
Likewise, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
I have a motion that probably doesn't even make any sense, because we already adopted our agenda, Marlene. But I'm wondering if we can switch letters C and D in our discussion. Because I think Xavier's gonna come on, and I feel like we haven't really had enough opportunity to talk about 421. And I know.
That's up to you as a committee, so go ahead, if you wanna do that, then
Okay.
do it by unanimous consent, and go ahead and do it.
Okay, so I'm putting out a motion that we switch letters C and D in the order of the agenda, so that we can get into 421, and then we'll see how much time is left for preliminary budget. If anybody's against that, say something.
That's second motion.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't seem to be anybody opposed, so we're gonna skip to letter D. And do C afterwards, and to letter D, we do we still have Xavier on board? You wanted to go through put some of this in context? And then we have members from the public, board members here too, so Xavier, are you ready to do that, or do you want us to just jump into the discussion?
If you would be so kind, I was actually getting ready to jump into a cab, because I'd love to be in the room with you. If that's okay. And then I'll be there in about 10-15 minutes, if that's all right with the committee.
Oh, well, it's fine with me, so
And if you don't mind, we'll just jump right in, and then I appreciate everyone's patience.
So I think we have new members, but everybody here is veterans of the same issues, right? And I think, let's see, what's the most succinct way? Let me see what I had in my notes.
I mean, for those who don't know what it is, it would be good if it was explained.
Well, like even Devin, I know I met you, but I don't really know totally what you're going through, or you know, what your experience is, but I'll just say that, so many years ago, a few decades ago, I was at HPD, and HPD used to try to incentivize affordable housing, the same way these folks are talking about giving the 25,000 to the landlords. And you know, when I was at HPD in 421A, there was a 420 program, I believe. These programs were touted like this is the solution to all of our affordable housing issues. Sadly enough, there was a lot of corruption that went on with that. There were some good projects that came out of it, but there was also some corruption and some other bad things that came out of it. And then there was rich people who were just made richer and they didn't really make a deep investment in affordable housing. And so I'm just saying that in light of what's happened at NYCHA. When I was at HPD, we had a few people arrested at the office because they were exploiting these programs and there was kickbacks and everything. But just to separate that negative part, we know that it was supposed to create more affordable housing. But now that the people who, now the developers have already become rich, our everyday people who own units are now looking at almost paying back their investments back into the program based on some bad things that happened, or the distance incentives. Yeah, yeah, basically, I mean, that's how you see it if you're, you know, from our point of view, and then other developers are saying, you know, we can't afford to do affordable housing without this, we can't, you know, we can't pay union rates, we can't, you know, we just can't, and so we know that 421A is going away, but it's gone. You know, but there's still some loopholes. No, there's some loopholes I'll tell you about later, that I found out about, that I shouldn't even be talking about on the record. I did find out about some loopholes where, depending on who owns the property for that amount of time, you can do certain, you can make certain tax incentives, because depending on who owns the property, if the property owner is tax-free, you have the same program. But that's for another meeting. You didn't hear that from me. So, but you know, I
guess, should we?
Can I just explain a little bit?
Yeah.
I just wanted to give
Yeah.
my side of it, because I understand how it was misused, but there's a lots of ways that it wasn't misused. So what we're gonna do.
You have to explain, because some of these people don't really understand.
Absolutely, and my explanation was very cursory. So, between the two of you, do either of you wanna go first, and then while we wait for?
I'm just letting you know that Xavier has his hand raised. I'm
Oh,
just
he's
letting you
right
know.
up. Okay, so let's hear from Xavier and then we'll go back out. Okay, thanks, Xavier.
Great. So I'm just waiting for a vehicle and I'll be right with you. I apologize. I thought you were going to go into the response to the mayor's prelim budget, and I was just taking care of the kids. I had unfortunately been an urgent care early this morning. With 421A, and I'll jump in a little bit more detail. Obviously, this program was meant to spur development in and throughout New York City. It was highly successful for many, many years, and unfortunately, it was exploited by developments for uber wealthy condominiums, et cetera, and so on. However, it did have positive results for communities such as ours, with affordable co-ops that were for working class individuals. There were a handful of condos that were actually slightly above that price point, but not at the other market rates that you had throughout other parts of Manhattan. With the advent of the program, though, you had various, depending on how you enrolled, you would either have 10 or 20 plus years of tax abatement throughout the program. Obviously, co-ops tend to be, when you have them, you have your mortgage, their shares, and you have the maintenance rolls into taxes with it. So that's the first thing to note. So for example, a condominium, your taxes are paid through your mortgage. In that instance, and you have real property per the Condominium Act. I'm just getting the vehicle. What happens is, thank you, with the abatement, it was meant to spur development and to allow working class people entry into home ownership, and in other words, put rungs back in the ladder. This unfortunately is now many of these programs, because they don't have 421A anymore. Many of these programs that started 20 plus years ago are coming to their expiry date, and they're going to start sunsetting, and the tax liability will start increasing. That coupled with recent report from the comptroller that many of parts of northern Manhattan, and other parts of the city should be increased for their tax basis with property taxes, has many people concerned. And with our working class community, many of our owners today, when they bought in, were broaching, they were getting close to retirement age. And so they're on a fixed income. If they have a pension, you're usually getting paid out anywhere from 50 to 75% of whatever your max salary was. So depending again, what union and what vocation you had. So I think it'd be really helpful. I'll be with you in just a moment to hear from one of the board members of one of the co-ops here in the neighborhood, Lydia Butler, kind of explain from her experience for her and her husband and her family where their sentiment is, what everyone is very concerned with, and the advantages of having the diversification of housing stock and how it has actually benefited our community and where their concerns lie. If that's okay to pass that baton so we can actually hear real world experience in the community.
Hi, well, I'm Lydia.
Dawn, is that okay?
Yeah, so we'll hear from Lydia and then we'll hear, we'll go around. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Lydia.
Okay, great, thank you. And really, I so appreciate this opportunity to share my concerns with the board. And I also really appreciate all the work you do for our community because, like Xavier said, I'm on my co-op board and I know that sometimes a thankless job. So I can imagine on a community board, just multiply that by about 1 million. So I really appreciate what you do. So I wrote out a little bit just because I get nervous sometimes speaking in front of people. So I just wanted to make sure that I hit all the points that I wanted to. Like Xavier said, my name is Lydia Butler. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of my co-op, which is on Madison between 118th and 119th. So in 2004, we bought into these co-ops under the auspices of affordable housing, and we had to meet certain criteria, which you had to be a first-time homeowner. You had to have an income below a certain level. So my building is made up of middle-class people, many teachers, many nurses, some city workers. We're all committed to making East Harlem our homes, and we were hoping to live here forever. We wanted to raise our families here. My building is very diverse in all ways, and all of the residents here love being a part of such a diverse community. We love being trying to give to the community and be a real part of it. But now we're facing the situation that's going to put so many of the residents out of their homes, realistically. The 421I tax abatement, the one that actually enabled us to afford to live here, is set to expire with no guardrails at all in place. And right now, the tax rate is so high that when the abatement is fully expired, I mean, I can only use my own numbers, but just to give you an example, my own maintenance will go up by at least $800 a month just for the real estate taxes from what the numbers are today for what the tax rate would be. And from what I understand and what Xavier just reiterated, Brad Lander stated he would like to see this neighborhood pay even more in taxes. So that will bring my monthly cost just for living, just for mortgage, maintenance, and taxes to over $4,000 a month. And that doesn't include, electricity and everything else you need. I'm a retired teacher. My husband works at a facility for medically fragile children. We're middle-class people that hope to stay in our home for the rest of our lives and hopefully leave it to our daughter one day. And there are people in my building that are in their 80s, and almost every day someone comes to me expressing their worry about their future. And where are they going to go, really? I mean, we were all able to have part of the American dream and purchase a home because it was supposed to be quote unquote affordable housing, but it's kind of apparent that nobody really thought it through, and it's going to be such just a tragedy when we have to witness grandmothers losing their homes. And so much on the news lately is about building affordable housing, But I feel like here we are in kind of affordable housing and it's just going to lapse. And I feel like instead of placing all the emphasis on new affordable housing, there should be some consideration to the affordable housing that already exists and help us maintain it and help us stay in our homes. So I know I'm, for my own behalf and on behalf of the 92 apartments in my building, we appreciate anything you can do to support or enable us to stay in our homes. So, thank you so much for listening and for, a few minutes to listen.
Lydia,
Yes,
it's Judith. I'm here.
great. Yeah, I know you're in the same boat, right?
I have the same issues that Lydia has, but I'm gonna let Tamika speak. Is there anybody else on there from any of our buildings?
I think Xavier just said just Lydia today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm just gonna just like imagine you're 35, 45 years old and you decided that you wanted to have your own home. And, you came to East Harlem, you got your own home, and you was paying $985 in your maintenance / real estate taxes, and your mortgage is around $1,400. Imagine you now 78 years old, 79 years old, and your maintenance is doubled to 1,800 and your maintenance is still 1,200. So the problem I have, well, I'm in a 421A apartment building too. I'm at 342 East 119th Street. So we have the Palm and the Rio across the street from each other. It's 142 buildings. When I moved in around, 15 years ago, everybody was new. We have kids were growing up. We only have 5 homeowners that moved into that building still existing here because everybody else couldn't afford, the real estate taxes. Everybody talks about 421A, they like to talk about the developer, but they have to remember when they come to our community, the developer pass on the savings to the shareholder. Right? It's not the developer keeping all the money from us, they're passing it to the shareholder to make it affordable. So if you can afford $985 about 10, 15 years ago, imagine what it is today. And we always misclassify when we come to our housing. We have 3-family homes or a bed and breakfast. So when you misclassify in your taxes, the real estate taxes go a little bit higher because we're misclassified.
Yes.
Why? Because we're in a red line community that's been redlined for years, that nobody wants to talk about. So I'm so happy that Senator Claire is rolling out a social housing development association that will wrap in the 420 way a little bit more different and give a tax incentives for the community members. The only way we can do affordable tax incentives if we change the law. 421A is expired, it's not coming back. I started with my maintenance, $822, I pay $1,700 right now. And my mortgage is about $2,500 for that. And I'm 48 years old, I plan to stay in my apartment for a long time, but I can't say the same for the people around me. They're selling their apartment because they have no choice but to sell their apartment, but they didn't want to sell it. This was supposed to be their final stop. And now when we brought the 421A to the housing committee, way before it started to expire to try to get some legwork and some help, everybody was poo-pooing, nobody wants to have an emergency. We have a housing crisis in our community and across New York State, period. The time to act was way before it expires. So now we have to figure out how we want to get our elected officials to create a new program for existing as well as ones they're trying to be, coming up. And we need to do everything in our power to save the existing housing that we have, because East Harlem is not gonna be East Harlem any longer. So that's all I have to say.
Well,
Let's just pause just for a second. Did you want to tell your story as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were just, okay.
I too am on the board of my building. And I'm in 1831 Madison Avenue, which is right next door to Lydia's building. It's that whole Madison Avenue strip, kind of. And I too I'm here 23 years. I bought my apartment. The first thing that I ever bought for myself And I live alone, I don't have children, and I even said when I did buy this, this is where I will die. This is it. I'm not moving again. So I've already aged. I'm aged already. Past 70. So what is someone like me going to do? I still have a mortgage. On top of the mortgage, we have an assessment in our building. And I still have my maintenance, which just went up about $200 because of this. And I'm on Social Security. And most of the people in my building, I would say, well, not most, but I would say half of us are the original people that got in by the lottery.
Right.
Because that was a lottery thing, the 421A. And we got in through the lottery, and now half of them are older. I have an 82-year-old man who lives in my building. I have people that are in the high 70s. There was no backup to this plan. So what happens to us now?
Right.
I mean, at this point, we can't afford to pay that kind of money.
No.
And, you know, it's just, I mean, there had to have been a backup, which I guess being first-time owners, we weren't allowed to own anything else. We didn't realize that the 25 years, too bad, now you're gonna get screwed. You know, and basically that's where it stands. And I have no place to go. There's absolutely no place for me to go.
Yeah, I think, I agree with you that keeping people who are already in affordable housing, keeping their housing affordable, preserving it for them is almost more important than building new housing for people.
Well, it also seems the developers now are not building any more co-ops or condos. I even said to Tamika, I said, was this a pilot program? But it's all over the city. And, now they're not building, and they even said to the governor that they wouldn't build unless they have their, incentives. So she did a 180 and gave the developers the incentive to now build, but now they're building rentals.
Well, so this is, we could spend all day, but I think one of the opportunities we have is to finally do a resolution. And then, you know, I think we should hold, Senator Clear's feet to the fire on this, because she was around when we were doing, not Alhambra, the, Schaumburg. I know it's called something else now, but she's been around for a long time. And we really need the 20 years of us knowing what's going on to start.
You know, I went to Robin's office when you were working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so anyway, I wanna, Xavier, if you wanna kind of, you talked about some resolutions and maybe we can make our way through some of that.
I apologize for being late, and if I stumble on my words that I.
No.
Had to go to Shakari. Took a bit of off my tongue chewing a gum this morning, so I'm a bit of pain. So one of the things I've been studying this, and actually the poem, 333 East 119th Street was one of the last state-owned land projects that was rolled into 421A and others that allowed for people to entry level who were on a working class income. They had various economic benefits to the, because you're in the Rio, correct?
Yes.
So this is one of the last programs that you had over on Madison Avenue. You had several co-ops. Again, these were designed within the 25-year abatement period. And they're gonna start sunsetting with the course of the next 5 years, 2020, to a whole 100% tax liability. Everyone there's working class. However, like you heard from Lydia, who is a teacher, Lydia, do you, on the pensions, I'm trying to remember, was it 70% or like 50% of your salary? Do you recall?
It depends how many years you taught. I taught on Long Island, so by the time I retired, I had been there for 34 years, so I got 68% of my final salary.
Thank you for clarifying on that. And again, it depends on the union that the member was in, and it's different for FDNY, NYPD. So if you think about, we have an increase in inflation, right? We had this traumatic increase in inflation, and now it's come down, but we have a new peg on what the cost of goods are. If anyone's gone to buy eggs or milk recently, eggs used to be the cheapest protein. So now people are not only having to live under more conservative spend per month, right? They now are gonna have an increase in cost and there's not gonna be parity matching that because most of those union contracts or most people who in general have savings, the return on the investment from their nest eggs, whether your pensions, whatever you're blessed to have, it's not gonna keep up with the rate of CPI, which is inflation across the board, or in social security, if that's all you have as well. So these are things to keep in mind. The city does have a program for seniors, to get some of their tax waived, but you have to enroll in it every single year. It's not the same, that would be as comprehensive. So I guess the question I pose to the committee is in looking what we ask, and I kind of had a brain dump with John, who's on the line, and Dawn, and talk briefly with Angel and Marlene, is that in staking out, if we're going to take a position, it would be a relief style program. This is not reinvigorating the 421A, which is what Hochul's talked about during the state of the state, where she said, oh, we need to have a rep 2.0. If you want to spur new development, that's a land use issue, and I would recommend land use to take that up, because what will happen is what was exploited by the wealthier developers for condos, it's not the same as say what we did with Sendero Verde or what Latier Construction in the community has done, where they've done a lot of affordable housing. For those that were with us back in 2018, when we had Jeremiah Schlotman, you know, one of our buddies, when we had Henry Flores as well, who actually lives over in the Palm, talk about how do you do affordable housing, and you just do a higher quantity of it to make it a viable source of revenue so you can provide a living for your family. And that's just one example versus what it would take to do one market rate. It takes one building, you'd have to do anywhere from 6 to 10 affordable housing buildings to actually get the equivalent return to pay for your employees and for your firm. So looking at this, I asked this committee, and what I kind of pitched out and said, hey, if we're going to create a relief program that was comprehensive, it would have to come from the state. The state has the wherewithal to actually create legislation where those that are capped at a certain income, and that's the thing we have to decide, you as a committee, then to take to the full body, what that income level is. So we've just heard that 68% of whatever the max salary was that Lydia in this case was making, that's where it's pegged. Now, we also had inflation epic rate of 8% like 2 years ago, and we're now just at about 3%, but we have a new rate. So how do we consider what would be an affordable relief program, right? Where do we say, okay, this is the point where someone should be able to roll? But prior to that, I want us to look at what the whereas clauses would be. And again, this is not something we're gonna vote on tonight. This is workshopping, if you will. Because this is not the only thing we all do. We all have jobs, right? So I would recommend a whereas clause talking about the history of what 421A is. So let me grab this. Does anyone have any questions? Am I going too fast?
I think we should also consider the senior committee involved, because you have the seniors where are they gonna go?
Do we have to?
We don't have a senior committee. It was
Isn't that
called- it was-
human,
It's human services, and this is something we could pass to them
yes.
next month. Their agenda, because they didn't have quorum last month, is chocolate bar. Do you mind if I recognize a hand, Dawn?
Oh,
You had your hand? You had your.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Right, we gotta slow down and take it step by step, cause,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate you being here and providing information. But I lost you like pretty quickly,
That's okay.
so yeah, I think we should definitely move forward, but I think we need more information, and a little more time. You know, and even things like, no, I understand that, yeah, but like to make an informed decision, right? And Tamika brought up a really important part really quickly, and I think it got lost about the Social Housing Development Authority and what the role social housing plays in this, right? The first thing that was brought up today was the ills of this project are developers are just making bank on it, right? And how does social housing fit in this, you know, to create the affordable housing that we need, but not give the money directly to developers, right? So I think there's a way to do it that's like the smart way. And it sounds like Senator Cleary has actually thought of some of these ideas and have been brought up. Maybe they're not perfect, but those are things that I'm not super familiar with, other than, you know, you mentioned it, so I quickly Googled it and now I know like a little bit more about it. So I just want to make sure we're not missing, you know, the forest for the trees, so to speak, and there's a lot here. So I get that we don't have time, right? But in order to make an informed decision, I just want to make sure we're all understanding, you know, the content here.
Yeah, exactly. And I have no issue. There's not about we're rushing something through. I just want to get something so you guys can start that process.
Okay, great.
It's a template. So this is the point where we're at this, I said workshop, right? So this is a great thing you're raising. I just want people to be able to put a clean divide that when it comes to the development side,
Mhm.
any position from our board or any others would be within the land use component.
Gotcha.
And the housing is for the preservation and the fight after everything is turned over
That makes sense.
and open, the doors are open. I think that's a good way to kind of divide it. So what I was talking about is just a kind of preservation relief,
That
when
makes
we look at this, so to help you guys start thinking, and then we can get something tossed into your, into the housing Google Drive, and then start collating all the information.
Yeah.
Tamika made a point about it.
But, my main point is always say that, you know, public land, it shouldn't have a price tag on it. It should have no expiration of anything with tax related in there. And we need to really push our elected officials to hold that accountable. Because if we're going to save our housing, we're gonna have some type of need, some type of relief regardless. And I always feel like the housing committee needs to be broken up because we got too many housing. So it needs to be NYCHA in one bucket, it need to be rentals in another one, and homeowners in the other one.
Come on.
And then we all can come to the table and talk about it, because everybody's needs is different, and one housing committee cannot fit those needs in general.
Amen.
So that brings up some good points. But one thing I found, in Lower East Side with Two Bridges Development partners with Smith Houses, and they all fight together.
Yes.
And it's many different types of housing. And so I've seen a lot of housing coalitions fail, but I feel like they sued the city successfully. They came together, and if Two Bridges was, I think, co-ops, there's two bridges, there's the NYCHA, and then there's Two Bridges condominiums. They push Pathmark out, like, I do agree that we have so much, we can have 3 housing committees, but I also think that whether we live in NYCHA or not, we need to fight like we live there, and whether we live in 421A or not, we need to fight like we live there. So yeah, I just want you to know, I'm on board. I don't want us to split up, but just for that reason, but yeah, I'm sensitive to that we can't get to the level of granularity that we need to with each person's issue.
And the other issue, you have people aging in place.
Yeah.
Where is their place?
Yeah, Jason?
Okay, I hear the issue, and I'm a housing advocate by background, and so I'm very empathetic, and I believe we really do need to allow seniors to age in place. It's very destructive and harmful to both the seniors and the communities at large, so that's my starting point. I have a couple things, so if we do this, I think. I don't think we need to design the relief program. I think perhaps we can say that there should be one, but I don't know that we need to spend this committee's time designing a hypothetical program. So I'm gonna throw that out there, because I think that, that is not my background. I don't know if other people have expertise designing different kinds of state funding programs and all of that, so I wanna be mindful, we can make the general demand without having to spend all of our time trying to create it. I have a question. I think with any kind of these kind of programs, like, we're asking essentially for money. So then the question for me is also, where does that come from, right? Because if we cut funding for something else that we care about to pay for this, that's a problem. And so I'm not saying we don't ask for it, but I want us to think about potentially, maybe we want to have a hook to it that's about taxing the wealthy in New York State. And that will help pay for this. So to me, that feels a lot more aligned with what we're trying to do, as opposed to then they cut funding to education or some other housing program that is for seniors and to pay for this, right? So I want us to be mindful of that. Just in terms of like the data, like I hear that the origin is for some of these buildings, because a lot of the other 420A was messed up. A lot of developers said they were gonna provide affordable housing and didn't, and there wasn't oversight from the city or the state. So that's a separate thing. But in terms of the buildings that you're talking about in our district, I'm curious, like, what is the demographics of the building now? Cause I hear your stories. Is that consistent across the building? Is that consistent across the city and the state?
Ours are very, very, very mixed. And it's not only our buildings, it's also the townhouses that were built at the same time, along, between Madison and Park, and some on Fifth Avenue, on our side of Fifth Avenue. But it's very diverse.
Yeah.
Very diverse. It's not like one or the other. It's, yeah.
So all of the data that I have.
What?
I said, I could provide the housing, the data that I collected over the years, and I can just submit it to you guys and you can see.
But we're not saying that one group versus another, like, I don't have a problem with a family that's doing okay, continuing to live there. Like, I don't think you have to be impoverished to have affordable housing, like, that's supposed to be, universal. I think going back 20 years, I think it's incumbent upon HPD and HCR to fix this. They put these regulatory agreements together, they put these packages together. And I think the elected officials could do something, but I really think that HPD and HCR, along with Hope, will need to get together and figure this out. And HDC, I don't think this, like you just said, Jason, I don't know if we could solve this right here in this room, but HPD and HCR and HDC together could solve this. Because they could redo the regulatory agreements and they could help us sort this out, so. I made more questions come up.
All of these buildings and the townhouses were all under, HDC regulatory agreements right now until, the next, I guess, 3 years or 4 years. I mean, since it's expired already. But, we're all under the HDC regulatory agreements.
So let's just pause, cause I wanna recognize the chair, and the chair, if you recognize Ms. McFarland and also Devin one more time.
Thank you.
The other thing I do wanna do before we jump into the next, part of this discussion is just, let's try to set, like, to Jason's point, let's try to set a limit on what we wanna do tonight.
Mm.
Do we wanna do 20 minutes of work or 30 minutes of work? What do we wanna do? Because we could, I think it's unfair for us to just spend 15 minutes on this, but I also know we can't, go all night, so, Deidre, I don't know if you wanna speak, and then Ms. McFarland and Devin and.
Go ahead,
everybody
on the committee, speak, and then I'll chime in.
I was just thinking, is there any way that we can look at the existing 421A and abstract the good points and what worked? And then that can be a starting base point for us, opposed to trying to design the whole thing, and then the things that didn't work, we put out off to the side. I don't know, I live in public housing, which I think what's gonna happen with the Section 8 these, the transition from pack and rag. I think that's gonna be that we're gonna be sitting at the same table in the next couple of 10 years with the same issues. So I do believe that what happens for you guys is happening with us guys. So I think maybe if there's a starting point in terms of what worked or what had worked for them, for this program 421A, then that could be a good starting point.
And my point was just to even take that one step further and say like, yes, to pull out the good points of 421A, and are there groups that have already done that work in the community that we can rely on? To your point around partnerships, and I think you gave the example of Two Bridges in LES, like there are groups that have been thinking about this for a long time. Can we have strategic partnerships with them to really take what they're, working on, help massage it and support it and lift it up in a way so that there's that synergy there, and we're working together. And we don't have to start from like square one, because I'm sure folks have already been working on this, especially grassroots folks, right? Like East Harlemites that we can work with. That's my point.
Thank you. I will ask, we have community board chair chat for all 12. And I'm on for a couple other in, the other boroughs. So I can send her a quick round robin, find out and ask at borough board this month about that. To Beth's point about pulling out the elements, you could, in the therefore clause, ask for them to create a program they could re-enroll potentially and to continue an abatement period or to extend an abatement period. Or that could be one of the therefore be it resolved requests pulling on that for whatever the reasons are. And again, we can pop this into the sandbox and you guys can go to work. You don't, obviously everyone's champing at the bit, but I think that if the research, if everyone's committed at this table, as well as the members who are not here, to go log on to Google, save it in your tabs file and just start working on it. A lot of our other committees have been doing that, where they go back and forth. And then at the next meeting, they go through and clear all the comments or make edits. So that's a good way to work, an intelligent way to work. I think that the other thing, yeah, with the programs that say for the Palm and Rio were enrolled in, many of these co-ops were had restrictions on selling. So you couldn't flip, and that created a community which is stable. Which is what I just put in the notes, what are we losing with working class, our culture, our seniors? These people are sewed in, like you heard what Lydia said, you heard what Tamika and Judith and all the others who live there. They're sewn in now. That's a good thing. So, again, this is just to get you guys kicked off, but I thought it was very, very important, especially as we enter the legislative session, that this is something under consideration. I'll reach out to the other board chairs. So thank you.
I want you to maybe read some of that, because what you were telling me on the phone was good, but also Cynthia had a question or comment.
I have a quick question, correct me if I'm wrong, you said to possibly, let's say, extend the abatement period. I know when Lydia was speaking, she said that she would see her daughter in that. Would this not be the same issue again many years from now?
So what, in an ideal world, so if you think about the carry, this is a 25-year abatement in this particular with their building. An ideal world is depending on what we bought. So we're now gonna start next year's was bought 20 years ago. Those taxes are gonna start going up by 20%, depending on whatever the city of New York determines them to be, which is oftentimes very arbitrary. And it was all created by Robert Moses, who's the bane of all of our existence. As they go up in theory with a program that's at a 25-year with a sunset, the theory was that in 5 years after that point, your mortgage will pay off, and then you see a decrease. However, depending on when you bought and the height of when they bought, the mortgage rates were not as favorable as they were, for example, in 2020 in the fall when they were at rock bottom, that they were sub 30%. When like my parents were able to buy, they were like 8, 9 and above, like double. So depending on where you did. So that is the concern. So would we be there? Hopefully not. Hopefully they will be closer to the mortgage portion. So if you're a co-op, it's not like real property, the condo, it's real property, but then the taxes are higher on a condo than they are in a co-op. You have shares in the co-op, condo, we own the real property. So that's the difference. That's why the taxes tend to be lower for the co-op shares. So that's, yeah, does that answer?
Yes.
Yeah, so hopefully they, by that time, they will have paid off the mortgage by the time it is passed, ideally. But a lot of people have refinanced because of when they bought back then. The mortgage rates were significantly higher, and then you set that 30-year clock and start again.
Right. So what would happen if they, finish paying off their mortgage before that 25-year period?
So in
Because you
theory,
still pay taxes on your home, even though you might not have a
You
mortgage.
just have your maintenance to pay, that's it.
your maintenance with whatever tax liability.
Or assessed.
The taxes are not included in the maintenance?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
So-
it's one bill of
Well,
maintenance.
yeah, so for the co-op, we go by shares, so the more shares you have, the more taxes that you actually pay.
Yeah.
But when it comes to low income families, when you get home ownership, you tap into that equity because something happens, right?
Yeah.
You have health problems, you wanna put your kid in school, you wanna own a business, so we tap into our equity. And like Xavier says, now we're starting to clock all over again. Right, so it's like, okay, I borrowed 100,000, I'm gonna pay it back in 25 years. It goes back to the state of trying to figure out, why are we creating programs that expire?
right? So, I would suggest y'all reach out to East Harlem Preservation. They have community land trust programs, and some of that can be bubble into these expiring units that's expiring, and trying to figure out how we going to tap into people and having people own it a little bit more instead of developers.
And January first, my building just got a 20% maintenance.
Yeah, mine, not last year.
20% because of the tax.
In regards to what we're trying to do here, you said this is all preservation.
Yes,
We're just trying to preserve.
we're just trying to keep whatever
What we
affordable
have
housing
now.
we have now.
Are these co-ops under the title of HDSC?
Yes,
No.
Okay,
well, mine's,
Yours is
it depends on the development.
the reason why I'm asking because Eric, Mayor Adams, just put into the programs where it's called mini. Let me just pull it back up so I can give you the correct names.
See how it's.
Where, it's called MIMI, MIMI, it was, announced a mixed income market incentive. And what they're doing is trying to take the tax breaks that they give to HDFCs and give them to developers to develop more housing. Why not use that HDFC tax break that's already for HDFC specifically for preservation of the buildings who just lost these 421A classes? Because that money is, the law is there for that. This HDFCs to keep affordable housing for low income. That was
Right,
the
and
whole.
HPD can do that.
Right, and HPD can do that. I know, the TIL program, that was one of the concerns and what some of the questions we asked. Even though there's a lot of buildings that still have no home ownership and I'm still advocating for that big time. But a lot of some buildings that failed with the, TIL program is because the city did not afford them the tax break. And that tax break is for 40 years. It's for, and it's renewable. So a lot of the builders, HPD say, oh, the program didn't work, buildings failed. They failed because they weren't paying taxes and sewer, which was a hardship for them. So, but now you wanna use that same tax break program to give to developers. And when I read that, I almost lost my mind about that. So, and for preservation, and if you are under the HDFC, why not, and if not, why can't you become a HDFC? That's something that can be done, you know.
And what about taxing, and what about?
I'll check.
So,
Market co-ops?
Market, right?
Yeah, no, we're, based on income, so we have income restrictions. In my, 342, you only can go up to 142,000 a year, to be able to get in. Then you need board approval, to be able to get in. So we only have 5 shareholders that moved in when they first opened. Everybody else sold already because they didn't want the increase on taxes. So some moved to Westchester, some moved to Yonkers, some moved to New Jersey because of the taxes. And then when you put taxes in the crime in the neighborhood, you know, there's like, I don't wanna pay this, I'm out.
And we had income restrictions only on the 8th floor and the 9th floor. That's weird.
Yeah, it depends on where you are, it's a different type of program.
Floors 1 through 7.
Yes, you're right.
We have an income restriction, but 8 and 9 had an income restriction.
Well, this shouldn't go to developers now. That program should not go to developers.
So I wanna call us back to order, because I do see John Green's listening in, and he's able to in this meeting before 8:30, and I might be gonna stop if I. So can we just, favor?
So, yeah, I want you to get on to a response to the mayor's prelim budget, I don't want you to have to spend, because you're gonna take this back and do the work before the next meeting, and I'm here, so feel free to follow up an email, I'm accessible to all of you, as you know. Again, this is, what I call in my industry a vomit draft, it's a skeleton, really, just think, and it's yours to play around with, I'll take a picture of it, and we'll get the ball rolling, but just whereas 421A history, talking about the purpose, execution, outcomes, really where we find ourselves today, who, you know, owners, working class co-op condo, relating to the expiry periods, you know, focusing on fixed income, retired, reduced income, 3 income, increase in taxes in the sunset, right? comp landers report for Northern Manhattan, which dealt with a lot of assessing that there should be a higher tax liability. And I actually did see him at the Three Kings Day event, and when I mentioned that I'm getting a lot of feedback about this, he said, I want to meet with you. So he was receptive to at least hearing that people, because we're working class community. Increase in CPI, which we can't get around, we can't control that, but just notating it, because it does have an impact on displacement of the current owners, and what the losses are for our community, loss of working class, culture, seniors, whatever you want to put in there. But as you've heard, we have a really diverse, beautiful mosaic in our community, and people who are really stuck in. They love our community and they're invested. They want to see it to be the best it can be and have upward mobility. And to the point, there are restrictions, like where one of my dearest friends lives in, grew up in Johnson, was able to stay here because of that, the Palm. And they had to hold it. They sold, they lost. They only got back what they put in. Their year periods, you have to live there, so. And then you can lead into therefore be it resolved, or whatever whereas clauses you want to put in prior to that. Calling for some type of relief program, right? It could be either an individual or a building enrolled. You could think of it that way by going back to the history. Does that mean moving the clock back? That's up for you to have a discussion. And also I would recommend for if it's a building, that's enrolling, that's one thing, or if it's an individual, what is the salary, what are the annual earnings cap that you want to place on it, right? If someone's making 500K who's working at Morgan Stanley, I don't think there are people who are after it to protect, right? They're okay. I see Jason nodding vigorously. But the point is but the person who's maybe got a family of 4 and 100K, who's just bridging that gap, which is a lot of money elsewhere out of the city. Yeah.
But they should have to leave.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to leave, because those people, think about the socioeconomic diversity. If you have that in that same building, the couple, one works at Morgan Stanley, one's a teacher. Then you got another one that's on, 9,500K, also a teacher, raising kids. Their kids are gonna intermingle, they're gonna build relationships, they're gonna be exposed to new ideas, new possibilities, and their minds gonna expand on what they could do. And they could develop long-term relationships. That's the point of why they design these programs, not just its affordability, but also creating stable community. We have socioeconomic diversity, we'll have a more successful community as well. So it's one of many things. Anyway,
Thank you.
I'll leave it with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you for being here and having quorum. So thank you, and yeah.
Can I just make one statement? Can we tap into the cannabis taxes?
Why not?
What?
Cannabis taxes, not just tax the rich, tax the cannabis, because we have so many.
We're gonna discuss that tomorrow. I'd like to confirm.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
We definitely,
So we gotta get Marlene home too. She's
Oh,
done a great
yeah.
job. Thank you, Marlene, for your patience.
yeah, like Judith said, they've been waiting a while, like, it's not on you because you're coming here new, but they've been waiting over a year for us to do this resolution. And I think it's not work. So, I am glad that we're moving forward and we're asking good questions, because we can't make them wait any longer. It's us, we're the problem, so,
So we did, right, I mean.
Yeah, I know.
I did, we gave it in and nobody.
Well, it's time now. Now is the time.
And now is the time,
So,
and
we
now
have
is the
to.
time when we're really,
What I'll do, committee, I'll put a draft into your housing real quick. So
That would be
put
great.
that,
Thank
and
you.
then you just go for it, and I'm carried your service, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'll let you jump in, so you can get
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, do we have to complete part, C today?
You should definitely get some comments on
Okay,
this.
okay.
So if
Can we do it, well, yeah, can
So
we do it for just 10 minutes or so?
I would jump in and try to get through as much as you can
Okay,
as possible.
okay.
Because otherwise, what's gonna happen, although we have, executives gonna be dealing with this, so we can meet the required deadline.
I just don't think we have 30 minutes.
We usually have 30 days to respond, and we want to stick to that hard and fast.
Okay.
From what date? So what's the deadline date?
When executive meets, it'll have been 3 days past at that point. So executives have to take a position that we gotta ratify. So whatever your comments are gonna be, executive is going to act on behalf.
Okay, so then, thank you so much for that. We're gonna try to, go through this
Here's, let me explain this exercise, because every year, most committees get this wrong at this time of the year. Okay? The exercise is not to create budget requests.
Right,
You should have reviewed this prior to your meeting.
yeah.
I gave this to your, this committee starts on page 262. Okay? So the beginning stuff is capital. I just gave you the entire register, for this board.
Oh, I thought it was the
No, if you see capital, right.
And can I ask you, Marlene, do you have any recommendations for us? Because I know sometimes you guys have recommendations for us. Do you have recommendations from, starting from page 262 or?
Right, so I don't have recommendations, but what I did give you guys in front of the register, I did that on purpose because this is the exercise. So I've highlighted from last year fiscal 24's preliminary budget, the board's response. I've highlighted the agencies that fall under the purview of this committee.
Right.
So if you scroll, I'm always in scroll land, I'm sorry. So if you go to HPD from this committee and land use, I'm saying this committee and land use because if you see the Cs, that means capital, and that always comes out of land use, like Xavier explained earlier, that's development. This committee is always preservation of housing, so you'll see the expenses, right? So you'll see the E at the end of the tracking code. I'm speaking to the new members, right? So for Beverly, Claudia, and Cynthia.
So page 4 of the,
Yeah, so under Department of Housing Preservation and Development. It's not highlighted on this thing, but.
There's 6 that are highlighted on this, right? I think that you,
Yeah, so if you look at the tracking code,
yeah.
the sheet with the register,
Let's see. Here it is.
the exercise, I'm sorry to be a pain and keep repeating myself, but the exercise is more fruitful when you all have looked at this already. So you come to the table and you say, listen, this is what I would like to add to the response. I want to highlight this specific tracking code in the response. So when it's submitted to OMB, like Xavier said, it's going, the exercise that you all do tonight, or if you don't have comments, we can't force your hand to have comment, if you don't have comment, but usually every single year in October, the same thing happens, right? So we do a survey over the summer, you have your, district budget consultations, and what comes out of that always is that affordable housing is in the top 3 of the need of the district as a priority. So this committee should have comment to HBD and NYCHA.
yeah.
But if you don't have comment, like I said, we cannot force your hand. Somebody say something.
Ryan,
Yes.
would you be so kind as to help use this one? I know they showed the comment and some probably have looked at it. Do you have last year's exercise on how you responded or?
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here, you don't have one, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I don't.
yeah. I was giving it to specifically committee members, that's
No,
all.
So,
Thank
to
Yeah.
your point, Marlene, one of the things I noticed for what you highlighted, thank you so much for highlighting, is HPD saying that they can't provide any additional rent subsidies. That's something I see twice in the packet.
Okay,
Is that something we would respond to?
you can, so here's how you would respond to that, right?
He does not have the authority to increase the budget for a number of vouchers.
Right, so here's how you respond to that, so in the email, I requested that if anybody has response, right, it should be in like sentence, paragraph form, email myself or John, and it has to be before the 21st. Because that's when the budget committee needs to compile all the responses from each committee that actually does this exercise. Licenses and permits does not participate in this exercise. So each committee that participates in it. So Dawn, if
Yeah.
you want to highlight that tracking code and give a response, email myself. Well, John, CC me, however you want to do it. So I could have a written response, so I could pull your written response and give it to the budget committee.
Okay, so I'm gonna start doing that because I think I was supposed to go to those meetings.
You are the vice chair, yeah, that's your,
So I'm supposed to be more active in collecting your thoughts, so I will definitely put my thoughts together and email them to you. But
You could give it. Well, 7 days before the 21st, somebody else, yeah.
And also when they say they're gonna, I think we,
14th.
in the past, we've been suspicious when they say they're gonna use current funds to,
Yeah,
should we challenge them on that, or have we challenged them in the past?
you could do that in the written
You're
response.
not doing a great job now, how are you gonna?
I mean, the office will assist you in wording that and being. But you could definitely write that, like write that in a paragraph and we'll tweak it and, you know.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think we have a capital.
In regards to, the capital budget that we did last year,
I think this is you and number 2.
I know the numbers changed in 311, Manhattan, Community 11, 2025, this is what you're writing for. How do because I know I still advocating for the fill program. We were very favorable, in the budget last year, I think we was in the 13th position. What I'm seeing here now, we're at 9, it's in 9. So,
This is you, so I didn't highlight it, so if everyone goes to so just flip your page to the beginning with the capital budget, subtracting code with the seeds at the end, for the new members of this committee. So the priority listed as 9. So this is what Beverly's referring to, so it's tracking code ending in 509C, priority 9. That's what she's referring to, I've neglected to highlight that.
Page 250.
254, yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just highlight that on our own.
Yeah.
But this is not in priority order, like number 1 is did we prioritize this?
It's always 40 expense, 25 capital.
But,
You can have up to that amount.
but it, like, Mr. Bonus saying it was 13, that was 13 last year, and now it's 9.
Well, it changes.
Oh,
Yeah, the priority list changes, yeah.
priority list change.
Okay, so I do see some issues on here that I think we should, we should double down on, what we think HPD can do. I think we should double down on the subsidies. I know it's too late to add tax abatements, but tax abatement is a form of subsidy.
You could try to squeeze that into the response, but a request can't be made.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
exercise is finished,
Yeah.
and it's gonna reopen again in October 24th.
Okay, so.
So the mayor said this is his proposed budget, right? It's his preliminary budget, and what this is for the new members of this committee, this response from the board, the statement is saying, this is how we feel about your proposed budget. Some things we don't like, some things we want you to improve on, and this is what CB11 feels about it. This is all the statement is saying.
That's for.
Your opinion.
So I'm gonna propose, I do have some things I wanna to email to the office for them to make diplomatic. Should I reach out to all the members of this committee and just get extra words and thoughts? Okay, so I'm gonna pledge to do that, because I should have been doing it anyway, but I'm gonna pledge to go back through this, and especially if the new members wanna just talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it.
Here's what I can do for you guys. Xavier kept pushing you to your board member drive, which he's right, you should be in the board member drive. Right, so I can make a copy of this document, the living one from 24. And that you guys can put your comments in there if you have comments. And if I go in there, let's say a week from the 21st is the 14th. So if I go in there by the 14th or closer to the 21st, I don't see anything, I'm going to tell Angel that this committee had no comment. Okay?
Great. I mean, it's not great, it's great that you're a solution.
Everyone, it's literally just some of our other committees. I know this is very rolled. And you start to fall asleep while doing it, but giving some kind of comment in hours, our conversations during the district consultations. And Marlene and Billy and Angel can tell you, when we push back, like you're saying, we'll do this within the, what was it, the pull down menu, that is, will accommodate the issue. this issue within existing resources. Sometimes pushing back and saying, well, we would like a commitment because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Within those existing resources for this community to justify.
Right.
Right, so if we're talking about socioeconomic disparities and you do a comparative analysis, you could use that if you wanted to really push back hard. So that's, you could go that deep, or say we will require a commitment of X amount, and these are. It's a bit of a song and dance, but do not, unless they say, like the stop sign that was right up by the bridge that we fought for years to get. Unless they say, we are approving this, we've approved it. You know, so you should have some comment.
So thank you so much, and thanks for your patience with the process. Was this about
No
budget?
problem.
Yeah, well, so what I was gonna do is, yeah, I think at this point, you're gonna email, I'm gonna text you.
That's right, these,
I'm gonna make sure you.
these will get updated.
I will.
Right, exactly, that's the 24th.
Okay, that's
So
it.
tracking
So will you do that with the comments or?
There's
you'll do
one
that
thing
after
about
as an
funding,
administrator?
It would help if you reference
What we're asking
where you're
for
getting,
funding.
you know,
If each
it
community doesn't
it would
have
help.
proper staffing, even if we get the funding, nothing's gonna come with it. None of the till conversions are gonna happen, none of the
Right.
affordable housing development, none of the inspection, like, they need staffing.
Right.
And so part of what we're grappling with is the city cutting staffing for all these important agencies.
It's true, even in, you know, but
Does
even in-
Uncle Kurt still the chair?
He's a commissioner.
Commissioner, I think we should, I used to work with him. I think we should speak to him and we should start to know what the impact is, because I agree with the staffing. But the way the state looks at it, it doesn't matter if I have one person in my unit or if I want two in my unit, I have to deliver, no matter what. Huh?
So they're not.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they have to by law. So this is the same thing, Title I, the lead law. We didn't have enough people to do lead law, but we didn't have a choice. So we, either we do it or we face consequences. So, but it'll be interesting to get the commissioner's standpoint on that, because I think I've seen some job postings coming out from the city that now the city is offering 12 weeks of leave if you have a child. I mean, like, they're really trying to retain the people who are there. But, Devin, did you? Oh,
Just a quick admin thing, because I spoke with Marlene on the side, but everyone I think should know. The tracking codes here from last year, of course, so when we quote, or when we have comments, just use the new tracking codes when we include them in here, so just.
okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you. So, with that, we will work behind the scenes this time for real, and I want to just say that for real. I just wanna point out for old and new business that we definitely need to continue this discussion about NYCHA and get more details and not hold anyone guilty yet, but be ready, 'cause this is gonna be a huge, I think a huge fallout. So maybe we can, put this on our next agenda as like a top item. And then we will have quorum again, so we will be able to just jump right into this and give it the time it deserves. So I'm not gonna bring it back up as new business, but is there any old business that, other than what we talk about every time, that we need to? Okay, so no homework? Homework? Yeah, that's, yeah, there is homework. Any new business that, I don't think we brought up our new business. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna ask if we could just take the roll while we still have everybody here. And then if everyone is in agreement after we take the roll, we will adjourn, but we will work together behind the scenes. So, Marlene, if you could take the roll, please.
Devin Concho,
Present.
Angela Donadill's excused. John Green is excused. Annie Hanson. Joanne Lawson. Beverly McFarland, Beverly Pavone,
Present.
Claudia Perez, Cynthia Ramos. Nicholas Reyes. Dawn Sanders.
Present.
Andy Vivek Vasquez. And Jason Wu.
Present. Thank you. So our meeting's adjourned at 8:31.
All right, thank you.
Earlier you was talking about, breaking up the household. What was the thing that you said?
Public housing, the homeowners, renters for family homes. The renters. Public housing, and they come together, you know, which are supposed to be. You ready for my card? Okay, perfect. We're trying to get it more.
And what we have done for,
The co-op that
economic
you're in, just as an example.
opportunity is clashes with the home opportunity.
Speak,